We each come through a season of warfare. I know that. I have seen that. It is all around us right now. The enemy is stirred up. And why is he stirred up? Because you are stirred up. Because our God is on the rise. His armies are on the rise. And so I ask, Lord God, as we worship you today, that our praises would be that weapon, that our praises would go forth from this house, from this place, as we declare your glory and your praise, and that you will be exalted, Lord, in all of this. In the name of Yeshua. Let's do Glorious, the one by Ted Pierce, if I can remember it.
Awesome in your power and
need to be with you. You fill me with thanksgiving and praise. How I love to be with you. Love to be with you. You show me love in so many ways. That's why I love to be with you. I need to be with you. You fill me with thanksgiving and praise. And you are holy. There's none like you. You are worthy of more than I could ever do. And your glory fills the universe. Yet you have considered me. You are glorious, O God. Glorious, O God. Awesome in your power and praise. You are glorious, O God. Glorious, O God. Glorious in all of your ways. You are glorious, O God. Glorious, O God. Awesome in your power and praise. You are glorious, O God. Glorious, O God. Glorious in all of your ways. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and worship his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, O my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, O my soul. I'll worship your holy name. Bless the Lord. the Shema, signing of the shofar this morning, calling us into worship. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shmoach kol shofar. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has instructed us to hear the voice of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chiyot legoyim v'natan lanu Yeshua HaMashiach, or Ha'olam. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has commanded us to be a light unto the nations, and has given us Yeshua, the Messiah, the light of the world. But Father, I thank you for the light that is in Jesus. I thank you for the light that shines out from him, that he is the one that we honor and revere. He is the King who is enthroned on the throne of heaven. He is the King who will be enthroned on the throne over this earth. And in this Shabbat, the Sabbath of return, this day where we, in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Sabbath where we choose to honor you, I ask, Lord God, that we will bless you. I know that you bless us, but Father, more important than that, I would like for us to be a blessing to you, O Lord our God. For you are our King and you are our God. And we glorify you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach.
love this song, Bless Ye the Lord. Like many of the songs I do, I've only heard it in one place. This one. It's in the Foursquare Church in Coke Hill, Oregon. Played by my first voice teacher, Myrna Trathman. And it was in the key of F, so I've lowered it to key of D. You all might want to stand because it talks about standing in this one.
This is Shabbat Shuvah. It is the Sabbath of return, it's called. The Sabbath that is in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The first Sabbath of the calendar year, but not the first Sabbath of the liturgical year. The liturgical year begins in the spring at Passover and in the month of Aviv. But this is the year of the king. This is the year of the reigning of the kings was counted from this day. And so there's special significance in being in the house of the Lord on this day. The reign of the king, the return of the king is here, and we are here to honor him, here to recognize him. Our Torah portion, Vayelech, is interesting. It says, and he went. And Vayelech depends on who. I've heard it pronounced 4 different ways this week. It's kind of interesting because it depends on which rabbi you're listening to and whether or not they're natural speakers and whether or not they're Sephardic or Ashkenazi. But this is the reading of the last day of Moses' life. As Moshe is concluding his life and turning the reins over, in a sense, in leadership to Yehoshua or Joshua. And so our reading is a shorter reading in terms of the Torah, but the Haftarah, the prophetic readings, have been increased. And that's because this is where we are called to return. Just like it's a return, the Sabbath of return, we are called to return. And Craig is going to come and read Deuteronomy 31, 1 through 30, where Moses tells about why we're going to need to return, and he directs the people to follow in Joshua. It's Deuteronomy chapter 31.
So Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. I am no longer able to come and go, and the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross this Jordan. It is the Lord your God who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who will cross ahead of you, just as the Lord has spoken. The Lord will do to them just as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and to their land when he destroyed them. The Lord will deliver them up before you, and you shall do to them according to all the commandments which I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you. Then Moses called to Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them. And you shall give it to them as an inheritance. The Lord is the one who goes ahead of you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. So Moses wrote this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to all the elders of Israel. Then Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, at the time of the year of remission of debts, at the feast of booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God at the place which he will choose, you shall read this law in front of all Israel in their hearing. Assemble the people, the men and the women and children, and the alien who was in your town, so that they may hear and learn and fear the Lord your God, and be careful to observe all the words of this law. Their children who have not known will hear and learn to fear the Lord your God, as long as you live on the land which you are about to cross the Jordan to possess. Then the Lord said to Moses, behold, the time for you to die is near. Call Joshua and present yourselves at the tent of meeting, that I may commission him. So Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves at the tent of meeting. The Lord appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood at the doorway of the tent. The Lord said to Moses, Behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers, and this people will arise and play the harlot with the strange gods of the land, into the midst of which they are going, and will forsake me, and break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and hide my face from them, and they will be consumed, and many evils and troubles will come upon them, so that they will say in that day, is it not because our God is not among us that these evils have come upon us? But I will surely hide my face in that day because of all the evil which they will do, for they will turn to other gods. Now therefore, write this song for yourselves, and teach it to the sons of Israel. Put it on their lips, so that this song may be witness for me against the sons of Israel. For when I bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, which I swore to their fathers, and they have eaten and are satisfied and become prosperous, then they will turn to other gods and serve them, and spurn me and break my covenant. Then it shall come about, when many evils and troubles have come upon them, that this song will testify before them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten from the lips of their descendants. For I know their intent, which they are developing today, before I have brought them into the land which I swore. So Moses wrote this song the same day, and taught it to the sons of Israel. Then he commissioned Joshua the son of Nun, and said, Be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the sons of Israel into the land which I swore to them, and I will be with you. And it came about, when Moses finished writing the words of this law in a book until they were complete, that Moses commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, Take this book of the law and place it beside the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may remain there as a witness against you. For I know your rebellion and your stubbornness. Behold, while I am still alive with you today, you have been rebellious against the Lord. How much more then, after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and all your officers, that I may speak these words in their hearing, and call the heavens and the earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you will act corruptly, and turn from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, for you will do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger with the work of your hands. Then Moses spoke in the hearing of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were complete.
Next week we'll read the song that he sings to them. Now we're going to read out of Hosea. Janie's going to read it's Hosea chapter 14. In most Bibles, it's beginning with verse 1 and it goes to the end. Hosea chapter 14.
Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Take words with you and return to the Lord. Say to him, Take away all iniquity and receive us graciously, that we may present the fruit of our lips. Assyria will not save us. We will not ride on horses, nor will we say again, Our God, to the work of our hands. For in you the orphan finds mercy. I will heal their apostasy. I will love them freely, for my anger has turned away from them. I will be like the dew to Israel. He will blossom like the lily, and he will take root like the cedars of Lebanon. His shoots will sprout, and his beauty will be like the olive tree, and his fragrance like the cedars of Lebanon. Those who live in his shadow will again raise grain, and they will blossom like the vine. His renown will be like the wine of Lebanon. O Ephraim, what more have I to do with idols? It is I who answer and look after you. I am like a luxuriant cypress. From me comes your fruit. Whoever is wise, let him understand these things. Whoever is discerning, let him know them. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the righteous will walk in them, but transgressors will stumble in them.
The next portion is out of Micah. Chris is going to come and read. And the reading that is in our reading list was abbreviated, but we're going to start with verse 7, read through to verse 20. Micah 7, verse 7 through verse 20.
But as for me, I will watch expectantly for the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. Do not rejoice over me, O my enemy. Though I fall, I will rise. Though I dwell in darkness, the Lord is a light for me. I will bear the indignation of the Lord, because I have sinned against him, until he pleads my case and executes justice for me. He will bring me out of the light. He will bring me out to the light, and I will see his righteousness. Then my enemy will see, and shame will cover her who said to me, Where is the Lord your God? My eyes will look on her. At that time she will be trampled down, like mire of the streets. It will be a day for building your walls. On that day will your boundary be extended. It will be a day when they will come to you from Assyria and the cities of Egypt, from Egypt even to the Euphrates, even from sea to sea and mountain to mountain, and the earth will become desolate because of her inhabitants, on account of the fruit of their deeds. Shepherd your people with your scepter, the flock of your possession, which dwells by itself in the woodland, in the midst of a fruitful field. Let them feed in Bashan and Gilead, and as in the days of old, as in the days when you came out from the land of Egypt. I will show you miracles. Nations will see and be ashamed of all their might. They will put their hand on their mouth. Their ears will be deaf. They will lick the dust like a serpent, like reptiles of the earth. They will come trembling out of their fortresses. To the Lord our God they will come in dread, and they will be afraid before you. Who is like you, who pardons iniquity and passes over the rebellious act of the remnant of his possession? He does not retain his anger forever, because he delights in unchanging love. He will again have compassion on us. He will tread our iniquities underfoot. Yes, you will cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. You will give truth to Jacob and unchanging love to Abraham, which you swore to our forefathers from the days of old.
It said there's extra readings from the prophets, because the prophets are those which call us into repentance and bring us back. Out of Joel chapter 2, verses 15 through 27, and Joy is going to read that for us.
Blow a trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, proclaim a solemn assembly. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders. Gather the children and the nursing infants. Let the bridegroom come out of his room, and the bride out of her bridal chamber. Let the priests, the Lord's ministers, weep between the porch and the altar, and let them say, Spare your people, O Lord, and do not make your inheritance a reproach, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, Where is their God? Then the Lord will be zealous for his land and have pity on his people. The Lord will answer and say to his people, Behold, I am going to send you grain, new wine, and oil, and you will be satisfied in full with them. And I will never again make you a reproach among the nations. But I will remove the northern army far away from you, and I will drive it into a parched and desolate land, and its vanguard into the eastern sea, and its rear guard into the western sea. And its stench will arise, and its foul smell will come up, for it has done great things. Do not fear, O land, rejoice and be glad, for the Lord has done great things. Do not fear, beasts of the field, for the pastures of wilderness have turned green, for the tree has borne its fruit. The fig tree and the vine have yielded in full. So rejoice, O sons of Zion, and be glad in the Lord your God, for he has given you the early rain for your vindication, and he has poured down for you the rain, the early and latter rain as before. The threshing floors will be full of grain, and the vats will overflow with the new wine and oil. Then I will make up to you for the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the creeping locust, the stripping locust, and the gnawing locust, my great army which I sent among you. You will have plenty to eat and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dwelt wondrously with you. Then my people will never be put to shame. Thus you will know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and there is no other, and my people will never be put to shame.
Our apostolic writings today will come out of the Gospel of Matthew. As we return to the Lord, we need to recognize that there are conditions to that return. Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 to 35, and Bob is going to come and read that for us today. Matthew 18, 21 to 25 to 35.
Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. For this reason, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wishes to settle accounts with his slaves. When he had begun to settle them, one who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. But since he did not have the means to repay, his Lord commanded him to be sold along with his wife and children and all he had, and repayment to be made. That repayment had to be made. So the slave fell to the ground and prostrated himself before him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will repay you everything. And the Lord of that slave felt compassion and released him and forgave him his debt. But the slave went out and found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 denarii, and seized him and began to choke him, saying, Pay back what you owe. So his fellow slave fell to the ground and began to plead with him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will repay you. But he was unwilling and went and threw him into prison until he should pay back what he owed. So when his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved and came and reported to the Lord all that had happened. Then summoned him, his Lord said to him, You wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not have all had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you? And the Lord, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he should repay all that was owed him. My heavenly Father will also do the same to you, if each of you does not forgive his brother from your heart.
recognize His majesty, and we sing about His majesty, and we declare His majesty, and we declare who He is. This is part of the warfare in the spiritual realm that takes place. When we declare who He is, when we sing who He is, Moses in his writing says that this song is going to be a witness against the disobedient. It's going to be a witness. Why? Because the children will still know the song. You know, we all know nursery rhymes, don't we? We all remember these silly nursery rhymes. There's something about the singing of a song that takes something that is kind of known to bring it into a different place. And sometimes the more we sing it, the more you sing the song, the deeper it gets within you, to the point that it doesn't matter. At some point in your life, that song is going to come back to you. One of the things that I enjoy doing when I go sing in the memory care unit is I enjoy seeing the different people singing the verses to the songs that they learned when they were kids. Because that music, for some reason, putting the words to music takes it out of the head range and puts it into the heart, or into the spirit, or into the soul. It takes it out of that place where our reason can argue with it and puts it into a place where it just goes deep within us. God created music. And I believe one of the reasons the enemy hates us so much is because God took music from Him and gave it to mankind. You see, it talks about Lucifer as being the son of the morning, as having been a choir director in heaven, in a sense. He was created with, and it describes all these musical instruments. And it's believed by many, and I can't document it all, but that music was his gift. One of the gifts God gave him, just like Gabriel is an archangel, Lucifer was an archangel. Each one has a specific role, a specific place. Michael is a warring angel, right? He is the angel over the nation of Israel. Gabriel is a messenger angel. Lucifer was a musical angel. And I think that's part of why he hates us so much. Because he walked away from using that to glorify God, to using it to glorify himself. And God said, okay, I'm going to put this into man. Man will sing my praise. Man will sing my praise. My people will sing my praise. And as we sing and as we worship, the enemy hates it. In part because that was his job. And it's now ours. Just like he wanted to be like God, right? And in the Hebrew it talks about he wanted to be like God. He wanted to be, well, like the Son of God, but he wanted to be God and worship like God. And he wanted to be creative like God. And he wanted to be like God. And yet God has created mankind to be like him. He has created us to be creative with him, to be a part of him, to be his children in a way Lucifer could never be. Moses said, learn this song, sing it yourselves, teach it to your people, teach it to the children, learn it by heart, put it into your spirit, let it come out of your mouth. So this song can be a witness for me against the people of Israel when the people fall. I remember years ago walking through a disobedience season and going out and partying and going out to the bars and going out to the different places. And there was a band I went to hear, and I have no idea what song they sang. I don't know what song it was they were singing. I really don't. Some country song. But in my spirit, all I could hear was, come home, come home. Ye who are weary, come home. Now, how in the world I heard that in this country western band, I have no idea. But in my spirit, I was hearing it. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. And I went, shut up! And I hit the table, and everybody's looking at me like, okay, what's wrong with you? You've had too much to drink, we're cutting you off. The song was a witness against my behavior that night. I chose to ignore it. Not a good thing to do. You don't want to do that. You don't want to tell God's Spirit to shut up, because He will. He will honor that. He will respect that. And when I finally came back to Him, there was a long season where it was hard for me to hear Him again. And it took a long time before I could hear Him on a more regular basis, because I told Him to shut up. You know, He respects that. But the song becomes a witness. The songs that we sing make a difference. Janie had no idea that's what I was going to talk about today. And she wrote this down as we were worshiping. And I said, okay, what did you get? Is that for the whole group or is that just for you? So she said, do you want to share it or do you want me to read it?
Only because I feel like there's more.
Okay.
There's something.
Okay, and as you share it, it will come.
Will come.
This is what she saw as we were worshiping.
Okay. When it was 10,000 reasons, bless the Lord, O my soul. I'm just minding my own business, worshiping the Lord, and I see a desert, and I see sand blowing, and I saw a tent blowing. It wasn't like blowing away. It was like all torn up and falling down. And Don Potter has a song about this tent and about a tent and rebuilding the tabernacle of David. And so I was thinking about that song because I don't remember it, but it's an awesome song. And then I start seeing people like back in the olden days. They were dressed like in Moses' day. They were dressed like the Israelites. And they were just kind of standing there. And then Craig blew the shofar. And what he blew were the different sounds for the tribes. And so as the people heard those sounds, they came together. They all came together in their tribes and got ready to march. Now, these weren't the Israelites coming out of Egypt. These were people coming from the four corners of the earth kind of thing. These are people who are returning. They're returning to Israel. They're returning to God. And so, then Joy is playing Steadfast Love. And they're singing this. They're talking about how God is bringing them back, how God loves them and He's taking care of them and He's going to bring them to this place that's milk and honey. And it's just awesome. And that's okay. They're returning to Israel and to their God. And then she shifts and plays Servants of the Lord. Now I'm just sitting there, I'm not doing nothing. And I want to say Tennessee. I don't know why, but maybe because I've been watching country music. But it's a little white church and it's back there's trees all around and these people, there's an organ and there's people. There's no other instruments. And they're singing the servants of the Lord that Joy is singing. And they're just into it and they're worshiping. They are lifting their hands. And they're just worshiping the Lord. And then I'm back outside and there's this man standing there. And he's just kind of pacing. He's deciding. Because the Lord is calling him. The Lord is calling you to return to me. Return to me. And this man knows that he has to go in there and he knows that he has to surrender to the Lord. He has to go up to the idol and he has to bow down to the Lord. He has to return. And then that's all.
So somebody has to return. I don't know who. Somebody, I don't know.
And this is the Sabbath of return.
What candle is down?
It says knowledge.
Yeah.
There are people whose lives are in the balance.
What?
There are people whose lives are in the balance, some of whom we know, some of whom are our children. And we must weep between the porch and the altar and intercede for their souls. Because they could die in their sins. They could miss God's calling for their lives. There could be a lot of wasted time where people that they are supposed to minister to don't get ministered to. It is urgent.
Hosea 14 says, Return, Israel, to Adonai your God, for your guilt has made you stumble. You know, sometimes we get so caught up in our guilt that we don't return. We stumble in our guilt. We get stuck on the feelings of guilt. We get stuck on, I'm too bad, I'm too awful. I've done too much. There's no way God's going to receive me now. That's not true. That's a lie from the enemy. Your guilt is not meant to make you stumble. It is meant to make you turn to Him. Guilt is not designed to condemn you. God does not condemn His children. He convicts and He calls them. He wants them back. It says, take words with you. Return to Adonai. Take words with you. Take your mouth. Bring your mouth to Him. Return to Him and say, forgive all my guilt. Accept what is good. Instead of just sacrificing a bull, I'm going to offer you my mouth. I'm not just going to sacrifice. I'm not going to go through the motions without it being from me and from my heart. Asher will not save us. We will not ride on horses. We will no longer call what we made with our hands our God, for it is only in you that the fatherless find mercy. See, there is this place where we have to recognize, sure, we're guilty. We have guilt. Don't let it stop you from coming back to God, from coming to Him. Don't go through the motions and expect just the motions to be it, but with your mouth confess. 1 John 1:9 says, with your mouth confession is made, right? If we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins, to come back. Let the wise understand these things. Let the discerning know them. For the ways of the Lord are straight, and the righteous will walk in them. Blow the shofar in Zion. Proclaim a holy fast, and that's where we are at, proclaiming a holy fast for on Wednesday. Wednesday is Yom Kippur. It is the day of the fast. It is the day. Gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the leaders, gather the children, even the infants sucking at the breast. Let the bridegroom leave his room and the bride to her bridal chamber. This is so important that all are to come. All are to come. Let the priests who serve the Lord stand weeping between the vestibule and the altar. Let them say, spare your people, Adonai, do not expose your heritage to mockery, or make them a byword among the nations. Why should the people be saying, where is their God? Yom Kippur is a day of coming before God and interceding, praying for others. The priests weeping. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary. Bless the Lord. All you servants of the Lord, who by night stand in the house of the Lord, because there was to be a 24/7 prayer taking place in the sanctuary. And those who did it at night were not allowed to sleep, not allowed to sit down. You had to stay up and pray. Sometimes we fall asleep, and we should be up. The Lord our God is coming. The King is coming soon. I've talked about that. I mentioned that the other night at Rosh Hashanah. The King is coming, and he is coming soon. And so often we get bogged down in the fact that I've been hearing this for years. I've heard this for years, right? Some of us have been around the church a long time, and some of us have been hearing it for years. In the 70s, we did rapture practice. I know, kind of silly, but we were so convinced. There were and are people who are so convinced that Jesus is coming that they sold everything and went and stood out on a hill and waited. Specific days set apart. The great disappointment. We do not know the day, the hour, but we know the season. And the Son of Man is coming, but he is calling his people back to him first. He is calling his people back to himself because he said he would. Assemble the leaders, the tribes of your officials, so I can say these things in their hearing, Moses said. There will be disaster come upon you in the Achrit Hayamim, the last days, because you will do what Adonai sees as evil and provoke him by your deeds. There is the day of judgment. We are in the latter days. I believe we are. How long those latter days will be, I don't know. And I'm not going to treat the earth bad because I think, God's going to come anyway, so it doesn't matter what we do to the earth. God wants us to be faithful, serving him, taking care of each other, taking care of our environment, taking care of ourselves. Not just abandoning it because, it's not going to matter. Jesus is coming back. I've actually heard that from people. Well, it doesn't matter if we use up all the water in this area. Nobody has water 100 years from now because Jesus is coming back anyway. Oh, come on, people. Let's be reasonable. God asked us to take care of the earth. I want to be found faithful as his servant. I want to be faithful as his servant. In Matthew, I find it very interesting that this reading was paired on the Sabbath of return, where Peter comes to Yeshua, Kepha comes to him and says, Rabbi, how often can my brother sin against me and I have to forgive him? 7 times, right? That's kind of the assumption, because that was what rabbis taught. That was what was common, was understanding 7 times. But if you truly forgive someone, are you really counting still? How many times does he sin against me and I have to forgive him? Up to 7 times? And Jesus says, no, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. And I have a friend, oh great, now I have to multiply too. I can't just add, I have to multiply them. Like, you're expected to count that high? The thing is, if we're forgiving our brethren, if we're forgiving each other, we're not keeping count. If it's forgiveness, you're not keeping count. However, I'm going to say this. Please understand me. Forgiveness does not mean putting yourself back in the path of an abuser. Okay? That's not forgiveness. He says, Rabbi, how often can my brother sin against me and I have to forgive him? My brother. Now, your brother has your best interest at heart. They are not using you. They are not abusing you. They are not intentionally causing you damage. Not if they're your brother. If they're your brother, they love you. Sometimes we hold on to offenses from a brother, someone who loves us, who has no idea they've offended us. No idea. And we hold on to it. Sometimes we cause offense, and we don't even know it. Sometimes we can see it, sometimes we do know, but a lot of times we don't get it. Why would someone be offended by that? Oh, maybe they took that wrong. That wasn't meant to hurt them, or that wasn't meant to be. And he's talking about that, my brother. We are to forgive. We are to forgive and let it go. Why? Because he forgave us. The story he tells is of a king who has someone who owed him a lot. Millions. And the guy couldn't pay his debt. He couldn't pay. But the servant fell down before him and said, "Be patient with me, please. I will repay." Now, I want you to see something here. It says, so out of pity for him, the master let him go and forgave the debt. He's no longer expecting the man to pay him back. It's forgiven. It's gone. I'm not sure this guy got it, because then when he leaves the place and someone else comes up and owes him money, he grabs and says, "Give me my money." Why would he want to do that? Probably because he thinks he has to pay the king back still. Pay me what you owe me so that I can pay the king. But the king forgave him the debt. King forgave him the debt. And rather than have mercy on the person who came, he throws him in jail, has him thrown in jail. "Shouldn't you have had pity on your fellow servant?" the king says, "just as I had pity on you?" And in anger then, the master turns him over to the jailers for punishment, till he could now pay back what he owed. "This is how my heavenly Father will treat you, unless you forgive your brother from your heart." That's not a popular message. It's not a popular message. It's not even a comfortable message. But the reality is, if we are holding something against our brothers, then we are living in active sin. If we do not forgive others, how can we walk in the forgiveness of God? There's an interesting thing that happens in our Torah portion. At the very beginning, in chapter 31, it says, Moses went and spoke the following words to all of Israel. All of Israel. Who? All. It's a group now, right? He says, "I'm 120 years old today. I can't get around anymore. God has said you will not cross the Jordan. Adonai, your God." Now, this sentence, I want you to understand, is all written in the plural. Hebrew is very specific. Not like English, where we have you and y'all, right? We have you as being you, individual, but you is also could be plural, right? Hebrew's not like that. Hebrew's very specific in the plural and in the masculine and feminine and in the plural that includes it all. This part is written in plural. It says, Adonai, your God, plural, all of your. This is your God. This God is all of ours. He will cross over ahead of you all, plural. He will destroy those nations ahead of you, you all, and you all, will dispossess them. Yehoshua, Joshua, he will cross over ahead of you all, plural. Adonai will do to them what he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorah, and to their land he destroyed them. Adonai will defeat them ahead of you all. And you all are to do to them just as I have ordered you all to do. This is a group thing. This is not an individual fighting a war. This is not an individual word. This is a corporate word. He continues with the corporate word. Be strong. Be bold. Don't be afraid or frightened of them. Even in the verbiage, the verbs specified, this is still plural. This is still plural. Be strong, be bold, don't be afraid, don't be frightened of them, for the Lord your God, plural, your, y'all, is going, and that word could also be translated walking, with you. This you is singular. He will neither fail you, singular, nor abandon you, singular. He's gone from the plural to the singular. Why? Because if we will not be afraid, if we will be bold, if we will not be frightened, if God is walking with us, we all become a one, a unit. we become a one. It's not that he singles out an individual and says, okay, everybody needs to be strong and be brave, but don't worry, God's with you individually. What he's saying is, you will become a one. Isn't that what Yeshua prayed for his people? I pray, Father, that they may become one. As you and I are one. United, together in purpose, together in hope, together in all of this, recognizing he is our God. There's a pluralness to worship, but there is a place where when we get deep into that worship, there's a unity that happens. A unity. And we become a one. How can you hold unforgiveness against yourself? Oh, wait a minute. We do that. We do that. And what he's saying is, you know what? When you are one, you have to forgive. You have to forgive. Does that mean we're all going to agree on everything? Absolutely not. Does that mean we're going to walk with perfect peace and harmony and we're not going to cause offense to each other? No. Otherwise, why would we have to forgive our brother? It does not mean putting ourselves in harm's way. It does not mean giving an abuser another chance to abuse or to hurt. That's not what it's talking about. What it's talking about is releasing them to God. Forgiveness basically says, okay, God, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I want you to judge that person. Wait a minute. I've been angry and I was hurt, Lord, but I'm going to give up to you the judgment. I'm going to release to you what you think is best in this. And Father, I'm releasing this person who has hurt me to you. And not like Jonah. By the way, Jonah is read on Yom Kippur, which is an interesting idea. Because where did Jonah go? He went to Nineveh, right? Nineveh is the enemy camp. And he went and he declared, God's going to destroy the city. He never even told him to repent. He didn't. Lousy prophet in some ways. But they heard the word and they repented. And then Jonah sat outside the city and waited for judgment to come. There have been times, I'll be honest, when I have been hurt deeply, where I still sometimes go, Lord, how long before you judge them? Right? But if they are my brothers, if they are my brethren in the Lord, then I have to let go of that. Lord, bless them. In your judgment, remember mercy. I forgive. In Revelation, it says those who died are under the throne. And they are crying out, how long, O Lord, before your judgment? They're not corrected for that. In fact, they're in righteousness in doing that. How long for your judgment, O Lord? How long before you judge and avenge us of our death? There is a place for God's judgment, but it's not ours. And if we do not release in forgiveness, then there's a part of us that gets held back. If we do not see ourselves as a unity, then we cannot sing the song of the Lord with purity. When we come back to him, we have to come back with our actions, with forgiveness, with love, with grace. We can't just go through the motions, although sometimes that would be easier. We come back. Why? Because God said, there is no God like you, this is out of Micah, who pardons the sin and overlooks the crime of the remnant of his heritage, does not hold on to his anger forever. He delights in grace. Do we delight in grace? I have to ask myself, do I delight in grace? There are times I really have to struggle with that. I really do struggle with that. As I stood by the river the other night, the Lord was showing me places where I'm still holding on to hurt. I'm holding on to things that are within me. I've still been holding on. And I release those. I release that, Lord. Some of it I've released before. Because some of it we have to do over and over and over again. Especially if we walk in a place where we run into the same people sometimes. Because what happens is it keeps coming back to us in our mind. So we have to release it and release it and release it to God. We forgive. Why? Because He forgave us. He forgave us. He's not holding it against us. Even in the latter days, when the people turn against God, and they have turned against Him, and we know that the nation of Israel has been in the diaspora, they have been in the judgment, they have been out there, and they are being called back right now to Israel, even as we are being called back to recognizing God, and we're called back to recognize the teachings of Moses, we're called back to recognize this whole path. God will forgive us as we return to Him. Are we walking in grace and forgiveness to those who have not yet returned in that way? In the latter days, the Song of Moses will testify against the people. There are times when I have seen some really interesting things and heard some interesting takes on some of the teachings out of the Torah, and how people discredit what Moses has said because their lifestyle isn't going to match what God has said is good and what God has said is not good, and what God has called evil. And what God has said, my people won't do that. My people won't behave that way. My people are not going to do that. My people are going to walk in my ways. That's what God said. And I know that as people come back and as we recognize the Word of God, we can't just explain it away. Sometimes His Word works as a judgment. It becomes a witness against us. It's a witness against our nation. It's a witness against what's being allowed internationally. At the same time, it is also a witness of the grace of God. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Even when we have walked in disobedience, if we will return to Him, He has promised us joy. He has promised to restore to us that which the locusts ate, the grasshoppers, the shearworms, cutterworms. He will restore. Don't be afraid. Be glad. In Joel it says, even to the dirt of the ground, don't fear, O soil. Be glad and rejoice, for Adonai's done great things. Don't be afraid, wild animals. Even the animals are not to be afraid. The desert pastures will be green. The trees are putting out their fruit. When Mashiach comes and sets up His kingdom, it will be perfect, and it will be beautiful, and it will be wonderful, and there will be no starvation. There will be no lack of water. There will be no more wars over territory. Why? Because Yeshua will be king. It will be established. It will be set up. There will be enough for all. Between now and then, the Apostle Paul reminds us to not let bickering rise among us, to not let fighting rise among us, to walk together in love, to walk together in respect, to walk together. It's not always easy to walk together, especially when you don't agree with exactly how this is said, right? But there are people we walk with that read it, they don't see the same thing we see in some areas. But they still love God. They still love Jesus. They still call upon the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. So that makes them our brothers. We have to walk in gentleness and forgiveness with them. so that we can walk in the power of His Spirit. And that's my challenge this week. We have Yom Kippur on Wednesday. The house will open at 10 o'clock in the morning for all-day prayer. Will be available to pray all day for people. To come and to pray for your family. Come and pray for yourselves. Come and pray for the city. Come and pray for this world. And if you don't know what to pray for, I got plenty of things to tell you about. Just pick up the newspaper. There's much to pray about. There's a lot to be brought before the throne of God. There's a lot for us to be, as priests, to stand before God and to weep and to wail and to ask and to beg and to plead for His forgiveness that He will give. And He will. He will. Because He is a faithful God. He is a faithful God. And He loves us. So come on Wednesday. We'll have a closing service around 6:30 and ending with some kind of food. Bring some food to share at the end of the service so that those of us who haven't eaten all day will be able to eat. So we'll have a meal after the service, a time of sharing. Tonight is a night of worship for His glory. Again, there are people there we don't agree with fully on things. We don't have to. They are our brothers and sisters in the Lord. They love God with everything they've got. They love Jesus with everything they've got. And they submit to Him as much as they understand. And maybe we're the ones that don't understand sometimes. We have to recognize that. But it's a worship night. I'll be there. Janie will be there. If you want to come, you're welcome to come. What time does it start? 6 o'clock?
Starts at 6, prayers at 5:30.
Pre-service prayer begins at 5:30. The service itself will start at 6. A lot of times when we get into the pre-service prayer, we start the service. Or it seems to feel that way, huh? So come to that. There's always food afterwards too, to share and to talk and to visit and support each other. Let's love on each other. Let's forgive each other. Let's walk in graciousness, recognizing that these are the end days, that the time is near when it won't be Yehoshua leading into the promised land. It will be Yeshua coming soon, and very soon. Yom Kippur on Wednesday. The next Sabbath we will be here. And then on Sunday night is Sukkot. Picnic and praise in the booth. We will meet out back. Not sure how that's going to happen yet, but that's okay. He'll show us, right?
We have a week.
Huh?
We have a week.
We have a week. He'll show us. He always does. God is seldom early, but He's never late. So, and that will be, on Sukkot will be a week from Sunday. Our first gathering for that, and that's at 4 o'clock. We're going to gather at 4 o'clock. Pardon?
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a week from tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. Yom Kippur is on Wednesday. 5 days at Sukkot.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. I was teaching on this at Lorna's, at Pacifica Care where my sister lives. And I said, I think it's interesting that God doesn't want us to stay stuck on the judgment. He wants us to come into fellowship. And so it's a real quick turnaround from the Day of Atonement to the Day of Fellowship. We don't want to get stuck in the one. We want to jump into the fellowship and the assembling and the fact that God will dwell with us. So that's all coming up. Wednesday nights are usually the Revelation studies. We'll pick that up again after Sukkot, right? Yeah. But for now, let's walk in love and forgiveness and grace and be blessed with each other. Joy, do you want to come and release us in the prayer, the Aaronic blessing? It's not in those papers, it's in the other.
Adonai Panavalecha V'yikunecha. Yisa Adonai Panavalecha V'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Shabbat Shalom.